riots, China, coronavirus, economic crash. What more? Saying the world is in chaos is an understatement, especially if you have this. The massive Australian wildfires, which had burned down 25.5 million acres. That's almost an area the same size as South Korea. Then you have the coronavirus pandemic, which infected nearly 9 million people and took almost 500,000 lives. Because of this, stores closed, economies collapsed, and millions of people around the world lost their job. But wait, you still have the George Floyd riots that erupted across 75 cities in the United States. Whew. 2020, what a year. Well, not really. We still have half a year to go. This means that there's still a lot of crazy disasters that might take place. So, are you ready? Today we'll talk about what more you can expect in 2020. But before that, please do us a favor, like, subscribe, and hit that bell button so we can keep you updated on the latest financial tips and trends. We understand that it's been a tough year. So, if you want to know what disasters to expect, we've listed down the possible scenarios that might take place, whether if it's natural or politically driven. We've put up the list so that you can plan, prepare, and make the right decisions, just in case. Let's start with number 6. Eruptions of a super volcano. Do you know that the iconic Yellowstone National Park is sitting on top of a super volcano? Yep, you heard that right. The 44-mile wide volcano is still active and can pretty much erupt at any time, although its last big eruption was over 600,000 years ago. But while the memories of its last eruption are all but a faint speck, the reality of a new one isn't. To understand how explosive this one is, End Times author Brian Walsh described it as like nothing humanity has ever seen, and that it will be an ultra catastrophe that could lead to global devastation and even human extinction. Are you worried yet? Well, if you aren't, Walsh said that this catastrophe can be so deadly that it can be enough to wipe out 10% of the population. Sounds really grim, Walsh. Unfortunately, America isn't alone. In Indonesia, another supervolcano might possibly blow up. While the small island nation is considered as the land of volcanoes, its biggest threat is the Lake Toba supervolcano, or the Forgotten Volcano. Now, Lake Toba is a volcanic lake that sits on a huge volcano crater. Just like the Yellowstone eruption, Lake Toba has massive potential. In fact, its last eruption 75,000 years ago caused a dramatic decline in the human population. What's worse is that a major eruption can also lead to a major tsunami. Now, speaking of tsunamis, let's roll on to number 5. Number 5, mega tsunamis. I don't know about you, but watching entire cities being engulfed in waves is really scary. One that you would have to look out for is the infamous Helena Slump. The slump is located on the south slope of Hawaii's Big Island. Because of its location, the Helena Slump is prone to landslides, which can result in mega tsunamis. In a report from The Independent, there is evidence to prove that a similar earthquake near the slump, which happened around 120,000 years ago, resulted in tsunamis as high as 400 meters. While the Helena Slump experienced a movement in 1975, it generated smaller, but still destructive tsunamis that reached as far as California. Another one to look out for is the Cumbre Vieja volcano, which is located in the Canary Islands in Africa. Now, for some time, the volcano has been really unstable, and experts believe that it imposes a huge threat on the Caribbean. Dr. Simon Day of the Binfield Gregg Hazard Research Center said that the Cumbre Vieja volcano can plunge itself into the ocean, which can cause a massive tsunami. Enough about tsunamis. Let's move on to its primary cause: earthquakes. Number 4, destructive earthquakes. If you're a fan of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, you've probably seen one of his films, San Andreas. Yes, we're talking about earthquake catastrophes. While the film might be a work of fiction, the potential catastrophic impacts are quite real. In fact, the infamous San Andreas fault has already caused devastation in the past, and experts believe that it will continue to do so. Research from the United States Geological Survey predicted that an 8.0 earthquake can wreak havoc in California within the next few decades. But wait, while the San Andreas Fault can be scary, you also have the Cascadilla subduction zone. This fault line covers states like Oregon and Washington, and given the increase in high-rise buildings, this can be really devastating. In nearby South America, another earthquake disaster might possibly happen. This is called the Chilean megathrust. According to a report from the New York Post, there has been constant seismic activity in the central Chile region, and that it can result in a very large earthquake that might happen before the end of the century. Number 3. Rising oceans. From seismic activity, we'll move on to an ongoing threat. While some people might deny that global warming is a real thing, the truth of the matter is that Arctic glaciers are melting at an alarming speed. This means that oceans are expected to rise faster than most of us had expected. In a somber report from the New York Times, the media outlet reported that experts believe 150 million people are living in places that might sink by mid-century. This includes places like the East Coast and West Coast of the United States, China, Thailand, and even the entire land area of Vietnam and the Maldives. Some smaller islands are also predicted to be submerged underwater by 2045. Number 2. Major solar storm. Did you know that in 2012, the Earth was incredibly close to being hit by a powerful solar storm? In fact, no one has seen this much activity in over 150 years. Back then, the solar storm caused telegraph lines to spark and even burned down telegraph offices, which cut down Victorian communication. Daniel Barker from the University of Colorado said that the 2012 solar storm was even worse than the last one. Thankfully, it missed Earth. So much for the ancient Mayan predictions. But while the solar storm might not be enough to wipe out the entire human population, it can be enough to knock out communications, including the internet. Number 1. New American Civil War. With violent riots breaking out from the death of George Floyd, an African-American man who died under police custody, a lot of people are asking, are we heading to the next civil war? Well, an increasing number of Americans think so. In the latest survey from the Rasmussen Report polls, the data shows that 34% of voters agree that another civil war is likely to take place. While some people might brush it off, the extent of the damage to cities where protests unfortunately became violent doesn't help the case. While we might be looking at the possibility of a civil war, there are also ongoing civil wars, like in Yemen. Caught in the middle of political unrest, Yemen is also suffering from 2 massive outbreaks. The situation has been so severe that parents are now digging graves for their own children. If you want to help, there are a lot of organizations that are reaching out to resolve food insecurity, including UNICEF and SaveTheChildren.org. Do you think that another major disaster is just waiting to happen? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. Plus, don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching this video.